Then another is shelter. Any other meanings of surrender? Yes, please. Serve. Okay, when we surrender to when we surrendered. So we are looking at the meaning of the word surrender in a general context as well as in a devotional context. So if we surrender, what follows after surrender is service. Yes. So surrender also means shelter in the sense that we seek. When we surrender to someone, we expect that someone will protect us. We come under their shelter. Yes. Give in. So are you using give in the same sense as give up? Or okay. Yeah, give in is, yeah, it's like we give ourselves to the Lord in surrender. It's given, yeah. So we could almost say like this, it's like offering. We are offering ourselves in surrender. Anything else? Sorry, one, yeah. Yes, please. Okay. So dependence, you're saying, which arises from knowledge. That knowledge of our smallness and his greatness. Okay, that's nice. So why would we surrender? It's only when we understand, okay, that he is dependable. You don't want to surrender to someone who is not dependable. Yes, please. Okay, yeah. So you could say here almost like accepting higher authority. Or yeah, yeah, yeah. Giving up independence to a higher authority. So here there is a voluntary, like you're using the word given in the same sense. Give independence to a higher authority. Yes. So we could say here complete dependence, complete admission of inability. Okay, surrender, yeah. I can't do it. So complete admission of inability. Okay, that's true. Yes. Surrender involves humility and loss of, is it loss? Because loss conveys a loss, isn't it? So it's almost like giving up of ego rather than we don't feel it as a loss. In the sense we renounce the ego or we distance ourselves from the ego. Yeah, so give up ego. Yes. Krishna talks about this in Machitta Saradurgani Mat Prasada Chetum Ahankaran Nashoshasi Vinamshasi. You will not be able to surrender to me. You will become conscious of me if you hold on to your ego. So give up ego. Anything else? Maybe 2-3 more answers. Yes, please. Are you saying that in the positive sense or negative sense? This word slave has a bit of a negative connotation. Yeah, but to serve. Yes. Acceptance of an authority. Okay. So accept authority. Hmm? Yes, good. Arjuna, when he surrenders to Krishna, he says, you enlighten me, you're the authority. And he says, there's no one who can enlighten me other than you. So I surrender to you. Shishyasteham shadhi mam tvam prapannam. I surrender. Yes, nice. Yeah, surrender is, it's not just, you could say acceptance, but after that, what do we do? It's like we have to follow. When we surrender to someone, it's also seen through our life, through implementation. Yes. Thank you. Yes, Prabhu. Surrender, is surrender a helpless condition, or does surrender arise in a helpless condition? What are you trying to say? Okay, so acceptance, you can say, acceptance of our helpless condition. Accepting our helplessness. Recently, I was at a meeting of these Alcoholics Anonymous. The devotees have started a similar group called Bhakti Recovery, where sometimes even devotees, those people relate with devotees, they also may suffer from addictions. So it seems that Alcoholic Anonymous has now got more than 100 different anonymous. There's Overeaters Anonymous, there is over shoppers anonymous. There are different kinds of anonymous, but their idea, one of the principles is that I am helpless without accepting a higher authority. So they have 12 steps. So accepting our helplessness. That's so true. Thank you. Oh, yes. So away means to the person whom we surrender to. When we surrender, we give something that is dear to us away, isn't it? Yes, that's true. You can say you give something, you can say sacrifice something. Surrender has no meaning without give away, unless we sacrifice something. Yes, true. Okay, yeah, the white flag of surrender, we put aside. Yes. Okay, full control of ourselves. Giving, well, some of these things about surrender sound a little scary, isn't it? Giving full control of ourselves. That does sound a bit scary. Yes, thank you. I think I was unprepared for the class. So you give me enough for this series now. So, yes, insight into our limitation. That's what leads to surrender. Yes, we accept our helplessness, we accept our inability. We realize our weaknesses. Yes. Thank you. Yes, giving away our freedom. I think was that mentioned? Giving up independence to higher authorities, giving up our freedom. Let's look at this. It's a little scary, okay? Yes. Puppet, yes. Become a puppet. Well, this definitely is not a very appealing prospect for most people, but we look at what it means and how it works. Okay. Becoming a puppet, you could say, yeah, instrument sounds better than a puppet, isn't it? Become an instrument. Yes. Okay. So, thank you. Yes, last. Yeah. Yeah, last. What are the last thing you said? Yeah. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think this is what I was looking for. So good you came to this. This is what surrender is an expression of love. Isn't it? In fact, surrender is one of the highest expressions of love. So it could be in any relationship. We want to do something, the other person wants to do something else. But then, okay, that's what you want to do for your pleasure, I will do it. So everybody wants, after a hard day's work, a good night's sleep. But if a baby is crying, the mother wakes up. In that sense, the mother is surrendering to the needs of the baby. So here, surrender, it is an expression of love. And that is the key element in bhakti. In bhakti, yes, does it involve giving up our freedom, admitting our helplessness? All those are there. But the essence is that through surrender, we express love and we experience love. So both of those happen through surrender. Surrender, it helps us to express love. Express our love for Krishna and experience his love for us. Both of surrender. So I will use a metaphor which we'll come back to throughout this these 6 sessions that we'll be having. And that metaphor will be of medical treatment, of basically when I was around 2003-4, I had a severe sickness which was not diagnosed for a long time. And finally, when it was diagnosed, we found I had advanced TB, tuberculosis. But for 9 months, I was having 8-9 months, I was having fever and weakness and various kind of sickness, and nobody was able to diagnose. So when finally it was diagnosed, the doctor was very grave. And he said, "You've got advanced TB." And my first reaction was, why? At least I know what's wrong. But then I was admitted to hospital. We have Bhaktivedanta Hospital, which is run by devotee doctors. So when the doctor saw the devotee doctor, he saw he says, "Now is an opportunity for you to follow Bhagavad Gita." I said, "Really?" He said, "Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam praja." If you want to be treated, you have to forget everything else and surrender to your doctor. He says, whatever dietary restrictions, whatever this waking time, sleeping time, I tell you, you have to eat this, you have to eat this. You have to sleep this much time, you have to sleep this much time. So we'll talk about how this surrender is meant to treat us. And the disease we are suffering from, our disease is essentially the misdirection of our love. We have a natural tendency to love, to want to love and to be loved. And that is innate to who we are. Unfortunately, this tendency is directed towards many things in life. For some people, it may be directed towards money. For some people, it is directed towards prestige. Some people, it may be directed towards sensual pleasure. Some people, it is directed towards their Facebook likes. Some people may direct to cricket and music and this and that. Now, in one sense, wherever our love is directed, it gives us some pleasure. That is the very nature of love. When we direct it somewhere, it gives us some pleasure. But often that pleasure is followed by a lot of disappointment, if not distress. So, what the Bhakti Yoga tradition tells us, the scriptures tell us, is that when we direct our love toward Krishna, then that is the love that brings the highest fulfillment. So we could look at love in 2 different ways. That at one level, if it's love, it is good when it is directed towards Krishna. And the other is Because it gives eternal joy. I say eternal bliss. If directed toward anything else, Krishnetara, anything other than Krishna, it gives some pleasure, little pleasure, followed by lot of pain. It can come in various ways. This is one way of looking at love. That in fact, when people look at life, what is it that causes the greatest pain? In fact, the things from which we seek the greatest happiness, they are the things that causes the greatest pain. So somebody seeks ultimate fulfillment through a relationship. Relationships are important for us. We all need relationships in life. But if we enter into a relationship with a huge amount of expectation, and then that is not fulfilled, and there's disappointment, and there is frustration. So this is one way that love is directed properly. Love is misdirected. But there's another way of looking at this same principle. That if we are here, our loving tendency, it moves forward in ever increasing circles. So for example, newborn child just loves its milk. As long as I get milk, I'm happy. If not getting milk, I'm angry and I cry. The child grows up, the child may love more than food. He starts loving its toys. The child starts loving the maybe friends. Starts loving their parents. Like that, the love keeps expanding. So maybe as they grow up, they love their country. Maybe they love the sports that the country plays. They love the national cricket team or the national baseball team. As they grow up, they may have their own family. They love their family. They may love humanity. So our love, our tendency to love can keep expanding. And when it reaches the ultimate destination, then it expands to an unlimited degree. And that expansion of love is Krishna. So Krishna is not just another object of love. Krishna is the object of love who includes all other objects. So in that sense, in one sense, there is Krishna here and there is the world here. There is Krishna and there is Krishnetara. But in another sense, there is nothing that is Krishnetara. Because there is nothing outside Krishna. There is nothing separate from Krishna. It is only our illusion because of which we think that things are separate from Krishna. So when our love is directed towards Krishna, then it is directed in the most responsible way towards our family, towards our friends, even towards our health, towards our various interests. So all the other interests in that sense are taken care of when our love is directed towards Krishna. So in this case, in this sense, it's more like a hierarchical progression. So our love may be, for those things at the bottom level, these are, you can say, misdirections of love. So if somebody's love is directed towards simply food or alcohol or TV or something like that, that is tamasic. We could put at the bottom of this is tamasic misdirections. This is in red. Then we could have something like rajasic misdirections. Then we can have sattvic directions, and ultimately at the top of that is Krishna. So basically, what we are trying to do through surrender is that we want to redirect our love toward Krishna. So surrender, the metaphor we'll be using is that it is a process for us to cure the misdirection of our love. And with that in mind, let's look at now surrender is explained in many different ways. I am going to take the 6 limbs of surrender that I explained by the Goswamis, drawing from the Puranas. So I talk about these in terms of an acronym A, B, C, D, E, F. It's more of a mnemonic than acronym. A is what? Anukulyasya sankalpa. We accept what is favorable. So let's put it this way now: is a limb of surrender, and since I'm using a medical metaphor, let's consider the medical equivalent of it. So if we consider accept the favorable, now let me go through the 4 elements, the 6 elements, then I'll explain how they are related with. What is the other? Second one is, oh, okay, you got the poster which we had sent you. Okay, so you remember that. So pratikulyasya varjanam. So now reject the unfavorable. Rejection can sometimes seem very harsh. So we're talking about, yes, the point of rejection is not to condemn, it is boundaries. We have boundaries, acceptance of favorable, boundaries towards the unfavorable. Now, if you consider among these 6 elements, there is a categorical discrepancy between the first 2 and the last 4. The first 2 are almost like actions. Do this and don't do that. The remaining 4 are more like dispositions. They are more of moods to be cultivated. So what is the third? Anukulyasya sankalpa, pratikulyasya varjanam. Rakshishyati iti vishwaso. That confidence in the Lord's protection. Confidence that the Lord will protect us. This is a third element of surrender. Then D is goptrutve varnam tataha. That means dependence on, so confidence in Lord's protection, dependence on the Lord for our maintenance, dependence on the Lord basically. Then E is atmanikshepa. What does that mean? Engagement. We engage our entire self. Engagement of our entire self in the Lord. And F is futility of our endeavors independent of the Lord. Atmanikshep karpanye. Karpanye is, I'm helpless. It was what many of you mentioned. Karpanya dosho bhata swabhava. Arjuna says, I'm helpless, Krishna, without your help. I'm lost. So now, roughly, any metaphor that we use, any parallel, any analogy that we use, it is like a rubber band. The rubber band gives us a grasp on the object, but the rubber band is not the object. The metaphors are help us to help us get some broad understanding of the subject. So accept favorable and avoid the unfavorable. This is essentially like the prescriptions and proscriptions. So the doctor tells us do some things and don't do some things. So that is the first element. If we are serious about medical treatment, okay, take this medicines, take this food, do this, do this exercise. It's prescription, proscription. Avoid these kinds of foods. Maybe don't do this kind. Don't expose yourself to cold wind, or don't do this. Don't do that. Prescriptions and proscriptions. Now these, in many ways, you could say that is all that there is to a treatment. That is accepted. You do what doctor tells you to do. Avoid what doctors won't tell you to do. And we could say that's all that there is. Well, yes and no. Here the difference is, in one sense, when we go to a doctor, we are not trying to develop a loving relationship with the doctor. No, we don't want a hostile relationship with the doctor, but the purpose is not to develop a loving relationship. But with Krishna, he is not only like our physician who is going to cure us, he's also the object of love. So some of these principles apply to a doctor in one way. To Krishna, they will apply in another way. Like if you consider medical equalities, when a patient may do the do's and avoid the don'ts, but the patient also needs to have faith in the doctor, confidence in the doctor. if that internal confidence is lacking, then the patient may take the medicines for some time. But after that, some treatment doesn't seem to be working, or some complications are happening. Then, hey, maybe this doctor is not good. Maybe there's no need to take this treatment. So here, confidence means, you could say, similar to this is faith in doctor. Now, akshishiti iti vishwaso goptrutve varnam tata. I have tried to read the Prisacharya's commentaries and Bhaktivinoda Thakur's songs also on this topic to try to understand what is the difference between these two. In one sense, they can seem very similar. So my understanding is that the way it is explained, that this is more for the dangers. That when we face dangers, akshishiti iti vishwaso. See, protection and maintenance, they are two different things. Protection, when do we need protection? When there is some danger. But maintenance is something which is always needed. So protection, confidence that the Lord will protect me amidst dangers, and dependence on the Lord on a regular basis. So in regular situations. So similar, in that sense, this faith in the doctor, that has to be a holistic faith. So here it's more for immediate troubles. That in danger, I have faith that God will protect me. But for many people, when they have trouble, the first thing they will pray is, they will turn his prayer to God. But as soon as the trouble is over, thank you, God. Bye-bye. They feel, so this is again a difference between a doctor and a relationship with a doctor and a relationship with God. It's not that when we got healthy, we just decide to stay in touch with the doctor. Unless the doctor is a devotee and we are becoming a devotee, then we'll stay in touch. But otherwise, what is the point? Now the relationship is over. But with respect to Krishna, it is not only that we have faith that he will protect us amidst trouble, that we also have again, this is faith that it is he is always maintaining us. Is more visible now? That he is always maintaining us. So there is that, so like sometimes, say if you consider now there are different schools of medicine. So some people say, okay, when I have some acute conditions, I'll go to allopathy. But for more chronic conditions, I'll go to Ayurveda. Okay, so it's not that we have faith in one system of medicine. It's like, okay, I'll use this here, I'll use that here. And that's okay. Sometimes that's how things work in the real world. But the idea here is that Krishna says, Ananya Cheta. He says, what is Mahatmanastamam Path Daivim Prakta Bhajantya Ananya Manaso. And the mind does not go anywhere. So Krishna is not just my shelter amid danger. Krishna is my shelter in all situations. So that is Goptrutve Varnam Tata. Atma Nikshep. So here, Atma Nikshep is offering our entire self. Now, what this means is that in the medical equivalent, I am committed to the treatment. Like some treatments are very difficult. There may be side effects, the exercise requirements may be very high, the dietary discipline may be very high. At some point, the doctor only may tell you, we have a limited capacity to admit patients like this, in this particular treatment. If you are not serious, tell us right away. We will admit someone else who is serious. So Atma Nikshep means we commit ourselves wholeheartedly to it. Yes, I am yours. I'm ready to offer myself completely to you, Krishna. So now when we say at our level, it is difficult. Our mind will go here, our mind will go there, it will go everywhere. Yes, that is true. Now, it may not be possible for us to in action commit ourselves completely. but at least in intention that I am dedicated. I am fully into this. I want to offer myself fully to Krishna. And the last part is that when Atmanikshep Karpanye. So here we understand the gravity of our condition. So without Krishna, I'm helpless. Like this, if this disease is not cured, I am doomed. So to the extent we understand this, to that extent, we will offer ourselves wholeheartedly to Krishna. So the idea is that if we consider this from the broad perspective, if somebody has some serious cancer and they want to be treated, then we can apply all these 6 things. We start taking the prescription and prescriptions, which are more of actions. But then they have to do it with a certain frame of mind. The frame of mind is that, yes, this treatment will take care of me now. When I have acute conditions, this treatment will actually heal me overall. That I have faith in the doctor and the treatment for that purpose. And I am going to give myself fully to it. And without it, the future is very dark. So this last part, futility, karpanye. Often this is the beginning of serious spiritual life. Arjuna has an existential crisis. When do people go to a doctor? It is somehow nowadays it's a good health practice to do routine medical checks. But most of the times people go to a doctor when they feel something is seriously wrong with them. So that feeling that something is seriously wrong is important. Now it's interesting that this is put as the last element in the list of surrender. And because this feeling incomplete without Krishna, feeling worthless without Krishna can come at various levels. So this futility is at a very high devotional level, but it can start also at a very preliminary level. Right. I was in India some time ago, and there was some spiritual teacher who was giving a talk. The title was, "Why Not Try God?" So, yeah, okay, you tried this in life, you tried that in life, why not try God? And yes, it is. Krishna accepts that kind of attitude also. Oh, yes, at least try me out. So it's good. But in this case, essentially, like God is our like lost alternative. I tried everything else, nothing works, so I'm trying God. Suppose a boy proposes to a girl, "Please marry me." And the girl asks, "Why?" It's because no other girl in town is ready to marry me. Now, that is not the most flattering of proposals. So now, if at that time the girl still accepts the boy's proposal, that shows the girl's love for the boy, that she really loves him. That doesn't really show the boy's love for the girl. It is. So similarly, often when we turn to Krishna, it is because Krishna, nothing else is working. You are our only shelter. So now Krishna accepts us even then. And that shows his love for us. And our love for him will be shown when we have alternatives, but still we choose Krishna. Even when we have alternatives. But this karpanya, this futility, can often be the beginning of bhakti, beginning of surrender. So in terms of, not in terms of the actions, but in terms of the reasons. So in one sense, if we consider the journey of surrender, if this is the soul, this is Krishna, the journey of surrender often begins with the 6th element, that I just can't do it without you. But once we start moving forward, then the key things that keep us moving is accepting the favorable and avoiding the unfavorable. So I'll speak something about accepting the favorable today, and then we'll move to avoiding the unfavorable tomorrow. Both of these are quite related topics. But before I go into that, any questions about this introduction till now that we had? Yes. Okay. So fourth and fifth seem similar. That's a good point. Okay, so my understanding of the difference is that the fourth is more of a realization that it is Krishna who is maintaining me always. And the fifth is more of a reciprocation based on that realization. The two are related, very closely related, but still the two are distinct. Yoga Swami talks as an example of fire burns. Now, fire is defined by the capacity of burning. It's difficult to conceive of fire that doesn't burn. You can say, but still, fire and burning are two distinct things. Not just grammatically, one is a noun and the other is a verb. But although the two are related, but still the two are different. Fire is the object, burning is its characteristic. Although it's difficult to conceive of burning without fire or fire without burning, still there is difference. So like that, there's dependence on that Rakshishiti Goptrutve Varnam Tatha. Krishna is my maintainer. And therefore, it behooves me to offer my entire being to him. So that is the distinction between it. Thank you. Yes, my wife. Mm. What do you mean by that? Like which unfavorable you're not avoiding? Now, what unfavorable thing are they not avoiding? Can I treat your question as unfavorable and avoid it? Well, at the level of Uttam Adhikari, it's the whole Vishwa is Krishnamay. So everything reminds one of Krishna. And we could say at that level, nothing is unfavorable. In that sense, they don't really consciously avoid things that are unfavorable for them. But we will see that at one level, when say the gopis meet Krishna in Kurukshetra, they feel that meeting in Kurukshetra, where Krishna is in the mood of Dwarkadhish, is not really favorable for their rasa. So they don't want that. Now, their resolution is, or their solution to that is, that they envision the Rath Yatra and put Krishna on the Rath cart and they get him to Vrindavan. So you could say that is accepting the favorable situation of getting Krishna to Vrindavan. But that is also involves avoiding the unfavorable. Now, we do see that Mahaprabhu was Radharani, was Krishna in the mood of Radharani. Now, he did at one time when he heard somebody very sweetly singing the Geet Govind. He was so enraptured, so delighted. Just ran toward that singer to embrace that singer out of love. And then his servant Govinda came and he said, "My dear Lord, it's a woman." The Lord was still, he was delighted that somebody was singing Krishna's name so devotionally. And if he was in the mood of a gopi, there's nothing wrong in for him in hugging another woman. But I'm a sannyasi, right? This is not proper for me. So he said, "Thank you. You saved my life, Govinda." So that's in the material world, there are boundaries. We avoid that which is unfavorable. What is unfavorable may vary for different devotees at different times. Okay. Yes, please. Is it a limitation of our human condition that there'll always be things that will pull us down? Yes. In the first canto purport, Prabhupada says that the liberated person is always vigilant to to stay away from temptations, to protect oneself from temptations. When I read this, it is a striking statement, because if you're already liberated, why do you have to stay vigilant? It's like they're liberated because they're vigilant. If somebody had a disease, now they're cured of the disease. They know that they're cured, and they are cured, but they're vigilant that I don't want to get infected again. So they maintain the precautions. In that sense, yes, we are always vulnerable. Thank you. Yes, please. Okay. So if surrender is starting out of fear of our terrible condition, then how will that lead to love? Well, fear is often the starting point for love. Because in the Bible, it is in the biblical tradition, it is that fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. Like, should a child be afraid of their parents? Well, you can say the child should certainly not be not afraid of the parents. In the sense that if a child knows no boundaries, child does not fear the displeasure of the parents, child does not fear the anger of the parents, then how is the child going to learn boundaries? So often fear is an important starting point. Now, should it always be fear? Certainly not. But fear is an important point that I'm tiny, and I am finite, I'm fallible, and I need guidance. Now, the mode of that relationship can evolve towards love. That Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Chaitanya Charan talks about these 4 levels at which we may approach God. Does anyone remember these levels? 4 levels of approaching God: fear, desire, duty, and love. These correspond with the 3 modes of material nature. Fear is largely associated with tamas. So the idea is that if I don't worship God, I might get in a lot of trouble. We may think of God negatively as God will cause me trouble. It's not that God is going to cause us trouble. It is rather our own actions which are causing us trouble. And God is simply warning us, don't do those actions. But fear, that is also one way people approach God. It's like we could take the example that should a patient be afraid of the doctor? Well, if the doctor has prescribed something which is unpleasant, which is unpalatable, now what is going to make the doctor or the patient do the things? One of this could be the displeasure of the doctor. I don't want the doctor to be upset with me. That is a starting point. It's not even not the ending point. And the desire is, so for example, put it this way, that somebody is sick, at least they fear, I don't want the sickness to become worse. And doctor says, you're coughing so much, your cough will become 10 times more if you continue smoking like this. Okay, I'm going to give up smoking. I don't want my cough to become worse. It's a good thing. At least they're stopping some way or the other. Now, desire is more in the mode of rajas, where, okay, I want to become healthier so that I can enjoy life. Maybe I'll stop smoking, but why? So that maybe after my disease is gone, I can start smoking again, whatever. But it is this desire for something more positive. And that is good here. Even the conception of God is a little more positive, not as a God is not the punisher. So here, each of these has a negative aspect and a positive aspect. The positive aspect is at least there is obedience. The negative aspect is there is a scary conception of God. One thinks of God in a negative way. I think God is a punisher. Similar Rajas. Yes, the positive aspect is that again there is obedience to God, but there is also a more of a positive conception of God, that God is the blesser. God is the provider. He's the blesser. He blesses me. That is positive about it. But the negative aspect of it is that it is very likely it is a very utilitarian relationship. And I worship God because he gives me some things. Like a child calls the parents only when the child wants money. Otherwise, the child doesn't even call the parents. Or the child has gone away from home, something like that. And then like that, duty and love will come to these later. So we'll talk about the positive and negative of these, each of these. But it's ascending. So beauty is in more sattva guna. We understand that God has already done so much for us. He's already doing so much. So we are, in one sense, positive is we are aware of reality, aware of God's mercy on us, God's blessings on us already. But the negative is that duty can sometimes become a burden. Oh, I have to do this, I have to do that. Now, love is the level where, in one sense, there is no negative. There's only positive. Here, we see God simply, not just as a provider of things, but simply the supreme lovable object. Here I'm object using this is a person. There's a hierarchy. So fear is also a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Okay, so let me put it this way. Yeah. Yes, please. So how does our devotional journey start? Well, in the Vedanta Sutra, in the Ramacharya has written the Sri Bhasya, the first sutra of the Vedanta Sutra is Athato Brahma Jigyasa. So he has written a 100-page commentary on that. And the whole commentary is essentially, how does that Brahma Jigyasa begin in people? And he uses various reasons. He says, maybe it's from past life. Maybe it's from this life, some circumstances, situations they go through. Maybe it's because they associate with people who are doing Brahma Jigyasa. Maybe it is the Lord's mercy. So he analyzes various causes. But then even with those causes, then why does it happen at a particular time? That still remains as a question. So there is, in one sense, for the spiritual journey, whenever there is on the spiritual path, whether there is the beginning or the continuing, there is a rational side to it, and there is a mystical side to it. So rational side is, okay, this happened in this person's life, and because of that, they turn towards God. So we all can try to figure out the rational side. And from the rational perspective, you can say that somebody gets the association of devotees, if somebody had a good upbringing because of which they turned towards God, if somebody was given a Bhagavad Gita and they turned towards the Bhagavad Gita and read it. So the rational side can look for and find particular reasons. But you could have the same set of circumstances happening in someone else's life, and that person doesn't turn towards God. So while the rational is a valid explanation, it's not a complete explanation. There is something more, something mystical. So that mercy element is definitely there. But then we could say the mercy is there for everyone. Why doesn't everyone take it? That's why people have to choose. And why does the person choose at a particular time? It's difficult to know. That's why it's very difficult to trace any one particular cause. So from the rational side, we can say there can be circumstances, and external circumstances, internal circumstances. There can be mercy, and there can be choices. Now, mercy can be in terms of It can be inner insight that a person gets. Mercy can be in terms of association that a person gets externally, whatever it is. So it's a complex set of factors which leads to the spiritual growth. So we can try to figure out the factors as much as possible and move onward. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. So now this point of, I'll talk about acceptance and avoid accepting and having boundaries more tomorrow. But I'll just start with one incident which gives us a certain food for contemplation about this. Is in the Ramayana, when the monkeys go in search of Sita, in one sense, Lord Ram has already acknowledged that it is Hanuman who is going to find Sita, because he doesn't give his own ring, a signet, to anyone other than Hanuman. So while this could at one level be said like the empowerment of the Lord, and the Lord has already appointed him, but this also at one level creates a burden of expectation on Hanuman. And in some ways, if you consider in the Ramayana, the journey that happens, Hanuman is almost like before the Sundarkand. In the Kishkindakand, Hanuman is like a second rung character. He's the assistant of Sugriv. Although he's himself clever, he's resourceful, he's the first Vanara who meets with Lord Ram. But still, he's an assistant. And then he's not considered powerful enough to even be in the league where he can fight with Sugriv or fight on behalf of Sugriv with Wali. Although he's there, he seems to be at a second rung level. And at that time, while he is at that level, of course, Lord Ram has a relationship with him because he's the first person who meets and they have sweet interactions. But strictly in terms of the story, Lord Ram selecting Hanuman is a little puzzling. He's not, is it that Lord Ram already knows where Sita is? Is it, you could say that Hanuman was appointed to go in the southern direction and they had seen Ravan going in the southern direction. So in that sense, it was likely. Now, of course, demons could go in one direction and go in another direction. We don't know. That is all this trickery. There's a Chinese book of war, not the art of war, another book, the Three Mouths or something call it. They say that this is make a noise on the left and attack on the right. That is a time-tested victory, time-tested strategy for winning against an enemy more powerful than you. So the demons could have been tricked. So at one level, Lord Ram could have said, Ravan could have been tricking. But Lord Ram sent him along the way. Sent him and gave him his blessings and gave him a signet. And then when they were going along, there are several reversals. And it's interesting that there, even in that group in which Hanuman was going, Hanuman was not appointed the leader of the group. Who was the appointed leader? Angad. Angad was the leader. And apart from Angad, there's another person who was much more senior to Hanuman, Jambavan. So again, even in that small group, Hanuman was like the second rank person. And yet, he starts taking more and more responsibility. When Sugriv has told, come back within 1 month. Because sometimes when you give a difficult mission and you don't give a deadline for the mission, then what happens is that difficult mission becomes a unlimitedly postponed mission. He says you have to come back within 1 month. And he in fact says that any monkey, this is again administering at the level of fear. Any monkey who is later than 1 month in coming back will be executed. There's no intention of executing, but that's just the way the warriors operate. So now they have gone to the south and they've gone way more than a month. And they're just not able to find Sita anywhere. And the monkeys become dejected. And the whole series of incidents happen over there. Angad becomes suicidal. He says, better that I die than I go back and I'll be executed in front of everyone. Hanuman tries to assure him, Sugriva is not going to execute you. He says, he had his own brother killed. He had my father killed. He will see me as an obstacle and he uses an excuse. Hanuman tries to pacify him. But Angad is too bitter, too confused, too dejected. In fact, Angad is just a teenager at this point. And he has this big responsibility, his first big responsibility, and it's just not working. So somehow at that time, when he's about to be suicidal, Sampati comes over there, and Sampati tells him that I can see Sita has gone across the ocean. And then they all come charging to the ocean. They decided, now we know where Sita is. When they come to the banks of the ocean, to the coast of the ocean, they see the huge waves and the unending expanse of the ocean. It's suddenly all their jubilation dies. Like sometimes there is a joke and we all laugh. And then suddenly we realize that the object of the joke is sitting right in the same room. And the object of that joke is a very powerful person. And then it's like we're laughing and suddenly, normally when there's a joke, there's laughter and gradually the laughter dies down. But when there is a sudden relay, this could get me into trouble and we're laughing, suddenly you stop laughing. So like the monkeys are jubilant, we have found Sita and now we're going to find Sita very soon. And they come to the banks of the ocean, the coast of the ocean, they stop. Start looking at each other and again that panic, confusion, despondency starts coming in them. And at this point, they all try to encourage each other. Any of you can jump across, Angad says. Who all can jump across? But everybody gives their best estimate. None of them is enough actually to go across. At that time, Jambavan turns to Hanuman. And now, when Hanuman surrenders, Hanuman is reminded of his prowess by Jambavan. Now, in the later renditions of the Ramayana, this incident is dramatized. Jambavan is said to sing songs, beautiful songs which remind Hanuman of his past accomplishments and his past prowess. And as Hanuman is being reminded, it like not only his memory is coming back, as his memory is coming back internally, his size starts growing externally. So Jambavan speaks to an equal when he starts speaking. But by the end, Jambavan is looking up. Hanuman has become giant. And then he says, now Hanuman, you are powerful enough. You will be our savior today. Jump across the ocean. Find Sita for us. Hanuman says, yes, I will do it. Now when Hanuman, at that time, he goes to a nearby hill and he, Jai Shri Ram, he says, he crouches down on the hill and then he roars out the call, glorifying Lord Ram, and just jumps. Now when he jumps, he pushes the hill backwards and then that pushes him upwards. He pushes the hill backwards. The force is so great that there are trees and animals and lions and tigers on that hill. They are all flown off the hill. They've never experienced something like this. What is this? And Hanuman just jumps into the sky and goes off. Now, as Hanuman is leaping across the sky, some people say it's flying, but more precisely, it was not flying, it was one leap that he took, a giant leap. Now, on that journey, when he went through, he exhibited these two characteristics, accepting the favorable and avoiding the unfavorable. So I'll leave it to you. Many of you know there are 4 main incidents that happen over there. So you can, today when you go home, you can contemplate those 4 incidents and see how Hanuman is demonstrating acceptance of the favorable, avoidance of the unfavorable. And in general, as you think about it, You may come up with more examples also. So like today we started with a definition of surrender. Tomorrow we'll start with what does accepting favorable and having boundaries towards unfavorable, what does it mean? Both in terms of scriptural characters and in terms of our life. So we'll start with an interactive discussion on that, and then we'll continue. So we had started this discussion with Srila Prabhupada's Markine Bhagavad Dharma, and we had time to discuss that today. But this is actually also Srila Prabhupada exhibiting this, accepting the favorable, avoiding the unfavorable. Prabhupada is, if you see in the song, he's saying, Boro Krupa Koile Krishna Adhamera Prati. Dear Lord, you have been so merciful to me. Now, if you look at it from a rational perspective, so Srila Prabhupada's situation, what is his situation? He has, like we discussed yesterday, he had no money, no contacts, no institutional support, no followers, even no really sound health. So we say, where is the mercy? Now, what is the mercy that Prabhupada is saying? And he's saying, Boro Krupa Koile Krishna. You have been immensely merciful to me. So generally, if we consider for service, whenever we want to do service, there are two things that are required. First is the opportunity for service. And the second is the facility for service. So if you look at the perspective of facility, Prabhupada had no facilities. But Prabhupada was grateful that he had the opportunity for service. What is the opportunity? His Guru Maharaj had told him, right in their first meeting, go to the West and share bhakti wisdom with the Western world. And now at last, the fag end of his life, he had finally got an opportunity to come to America. And for that, he was grateful. So that he was in America, that he had the opportunity, Prabhupada was grateful for that. He was accepting what was favorable for him, that I have the opportunity. And at the same time, he's aware of what is unfavorable. He says, Rajastamo Gunera Sabai Achan. That all people here are covered by the modes of passion, ignorance. And Prabhupada is not rejecting people because of that mode, because of they being covered by modes of passion, ignorance, but he's acknowledging that. He's recognizing that, and he's saying the way to cure this is by hearing the Bhagavatam, by speaking the Bhagavatam. Bhagavatera katha he saitaba avatar. Dhira haya shune jadi bar. So Prabhupada is in one sense setting a boundary. That is he going to reject everyone? No. He's going to speak the Bhagavatam, and those who come, he's going to accept it. Those who are not interested, he's going to keep a distance from them. So accepting and it's a prescription and proscriptions. So Prabhupada's surrender in many ways demonstrates these 6 principles. And we will sing the second part of the song tomorrow, and we'll contemplate on specific passages from the songs also. So the way we are going to do this in the next 2 days is that we'll start with interactive discussion on the topic. Then we'll if not sing full songs, we will contemplate some verses from either scripture or from Vaishnava songs which illustrate those themes. And then, especially in the post-lunch session, we will have an interactive exercise where we'll apply not just interactive discussion, but interactive exercise. We'll give some thought reflections, which you can contemplate. And then that way, the second part will be much more interactive post-lunch, but we will cover the 6 limbs in the next 5 sessions. So thank you very much. Shri Krishna Bhagwan ki, Shri Prabhupada ki, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Jai Gaur Premanande. Ad ki jai.
Sure. It's 9:45. Thank you.
I think you can stop now. You have time for questions? I mean, I don't think anybody has any questions. That's why I stopped at that time. We'll continue tomorrow.
Okay, so I think everybody's probably pretty tired now. It's late, so we'll wrap up today at 9:45. So tomorrow, please come at 10:30 here. Have breakfast prasadam at your homes, and just participate like you all did so nicely today. You know, so many examples of what are the various meanings of surrender and exploration of practical examples. So tomorrow we'll start at 10:30 and then go till noon and then have some light snack and then come back for the second session and then have lunch after the second session and then third session wrap up at around 4. Okay, and we'll kind of repeat the same process on Sunday. It's going to be kind of a long day, so I'm comfortable. If you need something better to sit on than this mat and you have a nice cushion, bring water bottles, etc., just to be comfortable. Okay. Okay. Any questions or comments? No. So we've been blessed with so many wonderful Vaishnavas coming, throughout this last couple of months. So thank you, Prabhuji, for spending 4 days with us out of your valuable schedule. We really appreciate it, and so many devotees here appreciate your insight into the scriptures and relish those insights so very much. Thank you very much. His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhuji ki jai. Thank you all of you for coming. This is the journey of our devotee. So by coming, you're indicating acceptance of the process of surrender, which is our devotional